Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Basra, DAF Yud Ches. We are holding on Yudzayin Amud Beis, all the way on the bottom, Tashma. So we parachute right into the middle of a sugya, right in the middle of a discussion. We had a shaila yesterday. So the Mishnah says, refrain from placing any damage causer, anything that can harm your neighbor's property or assets. Refrain from putting that in close proximity to your neighbor's property. So you have to be marchik, you have to make that setback. The Mishnah gave us a share of 3 tefachim for many different things, whether it's digging a pit nearby, whether it's placing these types of hazardous materials, things that generate fumes, moisture, have an acidic radiation, etc. Now the question was like this. It was machlokes Abaye v'Rava. Let's say there's nothing on the other side at this point. Can I place my item right at the property line? Because look, I'm there first. Or shall we say, no, you need to anticipate the arrival of a potential, victim, so to speak, right? You have to expect, you have to think ahead that perhaps down the road, by placing your item at the property line, when your neighbor decides to do likewise, to bring his wall there or to, right, it's going to be harmed by your thing. Must I take that into account or not? Abaye says, no. Look, I'm here first. When you come later, you'll have to, worry about it then. You'll have to keep your thing, far away from mine. Rava says, no. You have no right to place a potential causation of harm right on the property line. Right? So you have to be marchik, you have to make that offset right at the get-go. Even prior to the, arrival of a real concern. Tashma, now we're going to have a string of potential proofs. They're going to be cautious on Rava because we're going to endeavor to prove from the Mishnahs, etc., that it's only when there is something on the other side that I have to be concerned, but not in anticipation of its arrival. Toshma, marchikin asa gefes, vesa zevel, vesa melech, right? You have to keep the gefes, the olive skins that have been pressed. This generates hevel, moisture and heat. Vesa zevel, animal manure, vesa melech, salt, vesa sid, lime, vesa slime, these stones which are fire generators. So keep them away away from your neighbor's wall, 3 tefach away. Oisad basid or visad basid, depends on the girsa, and you must seal the wall with lime to protect from your material. Let's make a diak. Apparently it's only a concern because there's already a wall there. There's a wall there, so I have to keep away from that wall, lest I damage the wall. If there's no wall yet, no problem. I can put my stuff right near the property line. That's a kasha Rava who says you can't. No, says the Gemara, perhaps even when there's no wall yet. I have to pull back. So what's the point of the Mishnah? Referencing a wall. The point is, you should know that these things can harm a wall. So it's important to know that fact, so that if there's a wall there, keep these things away. Tashma. Right? But of course, even if there's no actual wall there yet, you have to know that if in fact this place carries potential, right, to have a wall. I mean, if it's a place where you'll never build a wall, it's a quicksand, property, of course there's no concern. But if there's potential for a wall, then you have to initially pull back your stuff from the property line. Tashma, it comes another similar kasha. You got to keep your plants, your plows, human water waste. Again, keep it 3 tefach from the wall. Says the Gemara, it's only because there's a wall there. There's no wall yet. Apparently, there's no concern. That's a kasha Rava. Says the Gemara, perhaps you have to pull back even when there's no wall yet there, because you have to expect, you have to anticipate a wall arriving down the road. So what's the point of the Mishnah? Referencing a wall. Again, the point is the matunta, because these things would generate moisture and all that. Kasha l'kaisel can harm a wall. It's important to know that. Tashma, comes another right. Remove any vibrators from his structure. Vasarachaim, right? Your millstone, which is grinding and vibrating, gimel menach shechev. You have to make that 3 tefach gap between the bottom section of your grinder to the wall, shein dalad min harechev, which turns out to be 4 tefach gap from the upper section, which is narrower than the bottom section. But again, tamadika koisel, apparently the concern is only because there's a wall there already. Halakha koisel samach, there's no wall, you can do what you want. No, kilaka koisel namle samach, even there's no wall. You have to set back. So what's the point of the Mishnah? The tirya, that vibrations, harms a wall. Tashma, comes another raya. The final case in the Mishnah speaks about a oven, which generates heat. Vesataner, keep it away from the wall. Shloisha min akilya, 3 tefach from the base of the oven to the wall. Shein dalad min asafa, which ends up being 4 tefach from the top part of the oven, which is narrower than the bottom part. Time of the kaisel. The concern is only because there's already the pre-existing wall at the property line. But no wall allows me to place my oven nearby. Even there's no wall, you shouldn't be putting your oven there, lest it cause harm down the road. What's the point of the Mishnah in mentioning a wall? The point is that this hevel, this heat, etc., affects a wall. Tashma. It comes another right from a Mishnah later on in the parak. A person should not open a bakery or a place where they dye material, where they have these strong fires burning, which creates smoke and all that. You shouldn't place it beneath your neighbor's grain or storeroom, right? Because the fumes can harm his tvua, his wine, his etc. But later, if it's bakar, likewise, you shouldn't have a barn beneath his storage room. Apparently the concern is only because there's already an oitzer upstairs. Of it. But if there's no oitzer there yet, I can start a bakery on the first floor without concern that perhaps later on there'll be an oitzer upstairs. So we see that we don't have to expect the future. It says the more dirashani. Yeah, here it's different because it's your livelihood, it's where you live. You can't stop people from opening businesses when the potential harm is not yet tangible. They cannot be, Tani Allah. I'll even prove to you, says Rava, that, here it's an exceptional case. Because the Brisa explains, the Brisa clearly says something which doesn't say in our Mishnah. When we speak about, stuff near walls. Over there, we're speaking about livelihood and a personal business, place of business. The Mishnah clearly says, the Brisa says, well, if the refes bakar, your barn, preceded the arrival of the Yitzhak, then it's okay. Apparently, because there it's dira related use. It's your personal place of residence, it's your livelihood, it's your business. So there we have this exception. If you come first, then you're okay. But typically, if it's just a regular mazik, like in our Mishnah, where you're placing stuff near the other fellow's wall, so even when there's not yet a wall here, you have to anticipate the arrival of the wall. You can't just be irresponsible in terms of placement of your materials. Tashma. Here comes another raya on this discussion. One should not plant a tree right next to his neighbor's sadeh, unless he leaves a 4-amma gap between his trees and the property line. You know why? V'tani alone, the Brisa explains. Dalad amis is, what for? Dalad amis she'amru, the 4 ammas that we spoke is kedei avodas hakerem, to allow for passing through of machinery, tractors, horse and buggies, which were needed to maintain the trees, right? To work around the trees, to pick the trees. So leave yourself that space, lest you have to, drive onto the friend's property and chew it up. So you have to leave that space. Tama the mishum kedei avodas hakerem. So apparently, the concern is strictly because of this avodas hakerem, because you're going to step over his property when you tend to your trees. But let's say there would be no concern of avodas hakerem. Let's say samach, there would be no reason not to place my tree right on the property line. Hold it. What about the roots? What about my roots that are going to dig into his property? Apparently, that's not a concern. So, what do we see from here? That if what I'm doing today is not causing you harm, I don't have to be concerned about potential harm down the road, like when the roots start growing into your field. That's a kasha on Rava, who says you have to anticipate future developments. Says the Gemara, no, actually you wouldn't be allowed to, but here there's no roots. There are no roots coming there. Hachamai was speaking the maps of Tzumma, there's a rock, a boulder, which is blocking any potential roots from extending into the other field. There's a gersa which places the words tashma right over here. Here comes another raya. Hayagadar ben time. So Allah is if there's a fence on the property line. So each one of these neighbors are allowed to place their trees alongside the fence because he's not going to be driving his tractor past the fence, so he's not going to be chewing up the property. But the question is, what about the potential damage due to the roots reaching in? And there's a girsa which adds the words hachanami b'tzum here as well. We're speaking that there's a stone blocking. Ihachi says the Gemara, ema sefer, if the roots are not traveling anywhere. So the Brisa continues, but if the roots are traveling to your next door neighbor, so the neighbor is allowed to chop off those roots 3 tefach down into the ground. Why? Because it's interfering with his plow, right? It shouldn't disrupt his plow. But I thought there were no roots going anywhere. Vida Mafsek Tzunov was speaking that there's a boulder blocking. My bow, Sharash and Hasam, what in the world are roots even doing on the other side? Hachikam, the Brisa means like this. It's a different case. Now, if there is no blocking, there's no stone, and it happens to be that he discovers some roots, his friend's roots in his property, so he's allowed to chop them down in order kadei so that it allows for smooth plowing. Tashma, comes another raya. Akasha and Rava. Your neighbor has a burr. You want to plant a tree, keep a distance, 25 amma, because of the sharashim that can travel into his burr. Talmud burr, apparently. It's only a concern because there's already a pre-existing burr. The damage is tangible. Like a burr samach, but there's not yet a burr there. I'm allowed to place my tree nearby. I don't have to account for future, possibilities. Says Gemara, no, perhaps even when there's no burr yet, I cannot place my tree nearby. Well, come on, Shimon, the point of the mission is simply to explain to us what's the extent of our concern here. The adchaf hey amo azli sharashim maskele burr, that roots can travel up to 25 amma and potentially harm a burr. So the point is just to explain to us how far you would have to be. Says the Gemara, if that's the point of the Mishnah, it's amos safe. Mishnah continues. But if the tree came first, before the burr, he can't chop it off. He can't force me to get rid of it. And the question is, but hold it, if according to Rava, he wasn't meant to place the tree there to begin with, because you have to account for a possible burr showing up on the other side. So if you didn't do that, how do you even have a tree? Kadamra Papa, Ezra Papa. Right? And one second, Rashi takes it a step further. Look, if I wasn't meant to place the tree there, so it doesn't matter what came first, what came second. Either way, I was violating the halacha. And just as if the bird comes first, you can chop off the tree. Even if the Elam came first, it was an unauthorized tree, we should chop it off. Says the Gemara, was speaking that actually, at the time of planting, there was nothing wrong. Kadam Rav Papa, as Rav Papa will tell us in a minute, but Lekech was speaking that he purchased it. What happened was that there was a former landowner here who planted this tree. He owned the entire area. He planted trees, no problem. And then he divvied up his property. He subdivided it, right? And he sold Reuven this property, which happened to have a tree on it, which was planted fine, because the former owner had a right to plant this tree there. And then he sold the other side of the property to Shimon, who was going to put a bar there. Now running into trouble. But the tree was there beheter. There was nothing wrong with the tree when it was planted. So he sort of inherited this tree, this pre-existing tree. That's what we're speaking over here, that he bought the tree on the property. So now his neighbor, who bought the property next door, wants to make a bar. So halacha is, if the tree came first, you have no right to destroy it, because Rashi says he was not taber rishus, he planted it there with rishus. Tashma, here comes another raya. Marchikin es mishra. You're meant to keep the mishra, the water, the soaking water in which they soak the flax, which is it's harmful water. It can adversely affect a vegetable patch, right? It's acidic, whatever. You have to keep it away from your neighbor's vegetable patch. Vesacration, you have to keep away these karsi plants. I think they're a leek or something. Minabitzolen, from your friend's onions, right? Because it can harm it, it can damage it. You have to keep your mustard plants away from your neighbor's bees. So if he's raising bees, you can't place mustard in close proximity, because the bees will end up chewing away at the mustard, and it's going to sting them, and they're going to the mouth is going to burn, and they're going to go consume their own honey, which is going to is going to harm the beekeeper. Okay, so those three things you got to be careful of. Time with Ika Yarok. Now the Mishnah sounds like the concern is only when there's already Yarok on the other side. I have to keep my Mishra away from that. Halaka Yarok Samach. But if there's not yet Yarok there, no problem. That's a kasha on Rava, who says we have to account for all possibilities. Says the Gemara, Yarok, perhaps even in the absence of Yarok, I should not be placing my Mishra on the property line. Well, Kamashmon, the point of the Mishnah is simply to explain to us what concerns us. The Hani, Kashu, Adadi, these things interfere with each other. Iachi. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, that a person should never be placing these harmful materials in a situation where it can generate potential harm. So how do we explain the following halach in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yesi mater b'chardal. When it comes to the mustard versus bees, says Rabbi Yesi, you have full right to place your chardal on your side of the property line. Why? Because Shimon, who placed his chardal opposite Reuven's bees, he can tell Reuven, look, you're pretending that I'm harming you. That's what you're claiming. Well, guess what? You're harming me as well. Before you start telling me and lecturing me, hey, get your mustard away from my bees. Well, guess what? I have a counterclaim on you as well. Keep your bees away from my mustard. Because they're coming and they're consuming, they're eating up the flowers of my mustard. They're ruining my plants. Okay, so that's Rabbi Yesi's response. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Vidloi samech. If you're not meant to ever place a potential mazik near a neighbor's property, so he wasn't meant to place bees, Reuben was never meant to place bees in this area to begin with. Right? So the question now is, well, can the mustard fellow show up with his mustard? What's the other fellow putting bees near the property line? Right? Because, the bee fellow shouldn't be there to begin with. And if he came there, he should disappear because he's a mazik as well. So what's going on? Right? Again, according to Rava, even before there was an actual victim here, you shouldn't be placing potentially harmful materials in close proximity to a neighbor. Right? If the assuming the bee fellow came first, but he had no business being there, so he should remove his bees. Right? So even if Rabbi Yossi holds, well, both have claims against each other, but what's anybody doing placing things to begin with? Says the Gemara, oh, here's your papa. He purchased it. What happened was, for instance, like we said, we had a property owner who owned this whole swath of territory, and he already had the mustard growing there, and then he subdivided, right? And let's say he sold a piece of a property to somebody else. Now this fellow put his bees there. Okay, so now we have a machlekes. How do we deal with this? Should the seller, the former owner, right? So again, we have a fellow, let's say Reuben, who owns this big area. He planted mustard in the middle of his property, no problem at this point. Then he split his property into two. He sold one part to Shimon, and Shimon placed bees there. So the question now is, that's the machlekes in the Mishnah. Can Shimon, the customer, insist that Reuben remove his harmful materials, remove his mustard? So although when the mustard was planted way back, it was beheter, it was fine, because there was no potential for hezek, there was nobody next door. Right? So that's the shad. Can he insist that he removes it? So Tanakama says, the Chum say, yeah, because you're being mazik the bees. Whereas Rabbi Yossi says, no. Just as much as the mustard is harming the bees, the bees are harming the mustard. And since, really, he shouldn't have placed his bees there, because the chardal, the mustard, was there beheter, it was there kedin, it was there legally, before the arrival of the bees. So that's what Rabbi Yossi says, that he can't insist on Reuben removing his mustard. So in a nutshell, that's the machlekes. Says my time of the Rabbana. So then that begs the question that if in fact Reuben had planted his mustard legally prior to selling part of his field to Shimon, who then placed bees, so my time of the Rabbana, why did Rabbanan insist that Reuben remove his mustard? He was there legally. He was there first. And there was nothing wrong at the time. There was no potential victim on the other side. Void, becomes another question. My time with the Rabbi Yossi. Why is Rabbi Yossi focusing simply on the case of the bees with the mustard? I feel a mishra v'yarkanabi. If the main point here is that since the first fellow arrived legally, then when it comes to the other harmful materials like mishra harming the yarak, creation harming the betzalim, there as well. If the first material arrived legally, then he has a right to stay there. Says the Gemara, no. The reason why let's first try to answer the first kasha. It was there legally, who cares? But I'm being mazik. The fact is the mazik has to keep away. The one that's causing harm Even if he came there illegally, if he's causing harm, he has to keep away. Asks the Gemara, okay, now let's shift to Rabbi Yossi. Let's explain Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Okay, so apparently Rabbi Yossi holds that in all these instances where there's merely causation of harm, it's not actual direct physical harm, there's causations, it's grama. So we say, no, it's the nizik. It's upon the potential victim to keep away, to protect himself. And that's why he says, well, you can't force the mustard to disappear, right? You watch your bees from the mustard. Don't, right? If that's the thinking here, the nizik has to protect himself. So now back to the question. Why are we focusing only on the bees and the mustard? The same rationale, the same logic applies to the other cases as well. Ella rather says the Gemara Olam Kasav Rabbi Yossi Nami Ala Mazik. Seriously. Truthfully, Rabbi Yossi agrees to the Chachamim that the mazik is the one that has to beware. And this is what Rabbi Yossi meant to tell the Rabbanon. I understand when it comes to placing the mishra water, near the yarak. Yeah, I understand why the mishra has to disappear, because the hani maski hani, because the mishra harms the vegetables. If hani lemaski hani, the vegetables don't harm the mishra, right? So I understand it's a one-way concern, and you can force the mazik to remove his mazik. But when it comes to this unique case of chardal versus dvarim tarvayu maski adadi, you can't identify Reuven as the culprit because they're both harming each other. They're two-way harming your system. So since the Reuven, the one who planted his chardal, came legally, came beheter, as we explained, so the bee fellow has no right to force him out. The Rabbanan respond, no, that's incorrect. It's not a two-way street. The bees don't harm the mustard, because if it's a question of pulling out the seeds, they can't find it. It's embedded inside the plant, so they're not going to get to that. If it's a question of the leaves or the flowers, it'll regrow. It's not a permanent, enduring damage. So bottom line, the bees suffering more than the mustard, and therefore the mustard has to vacate the area. Asks the Gemara, do you mean that Rabbi Yossi holds that, in fact, he holds like the Rabbana, the mazik, has to keep away? But now we have a Mishnah. When it comes to planting a tree near a bar, Rabbi Yossi totally disagrees. Because there's no imminent damage, it's causation, it's grama, and you have to worry about your property. I don't have to worry about harming you later on. But even if the bar came first, before the tree, he cannot force the tree out. Each person can conduct any of these activities within his property. I can plant my tree in my property, you can dig a bar in your property. Because as long as I'm not, directly harming you, you're dying. All these types of, potential future causations of damage. No, Rabbi Yossi disagrees with the whole concept that we're learning in the parak. You don't have to keep away. Do what you want on your property. Down the road, he'll have to worry about himself. Says the Gemara, you're right. You're right. Rabbi Yossi holds that the nizik, the victim, has to protect himself. So back to the question: why is Rabbi Yossi focusing only on the bees and the mustard? If it's the nizak that has to protect himself, then Rabbi Yossi should be really arguing and disagreeing on all the cases, the mishra and the yarak, etc. It's not upon the mazik to worry about it; it's upon the nizak. You're right. Rabbi Yossi ala nizak svirla. He holds that the nizak is meant to protect himself. When he was speaking to the Rabban, he was just responding to them on their wavelength, based on their approach. Meaning, my personal opinion is, ala nizak lachagas atzmai, it's the responsibility of the nizak to worry about himself. Even in the other cases of the mishra versus the yarak, the victim has to protect himself, and not vice versa. So I really disagree with all the halachas that you mentioned. In all cases, I maintain that it's a responsibility of the potential victim to make that gap, to protect himself. But according to your opinion, you hold Damrisu ala mazik. typically the mazik. Beware, he is responsible. Okay, fine. Teinach mishra v'yarka. So let's go through the cases. Mishra versus the yarak. Okay, that granted, I agree. The hani maski hani, vani lo maski hani. It's only the mishra causing damage to the yarak and not vice versa. So I understand your point. But when it comes to the last case of the bees and the honey and the mustard, tarvayu maski adadi. It's a two-way harming effect. So why are you holding the mustard farmer as a culpable fellow? Why is he responsible? Why is he the perpetrator? For Rabbanan respond, no, it's incorrect. Dvarim l'charda l'maskele, the damage that the bees cause to the mustard plant is negligible. Ibabinsa, because in terms of the seeds, they don't really have access to it. It's a question of the actual plant, the leaves. That's not really an enduring damage. Hadapari, it's going to regrow, and therefore we consider him to be the mazik of the bees, as we explained, because when the bees actually chew up the mustard material, it stings their mouths, and they need to water it down and cool it off by seeking some sort of relief, which compels them to go back to their hives and consume their honey, which causes the beekeeper immense damage. So in a nutshell, we learned about being soimech, right? Placing materials that can potentially cause damage to a property, to a neighbor's property. According to Rava, you shouldn't be doing so even prior to the arrival of a potential nizak on the other side. We had many attempts at rayas otherwise, from Mishnahs and Brises, where it sounds like the concern is only when there's imminent damage, and we answered all the kashas, and we concluded with the discussion of Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan. Rabbanan say, Allah mazik l'archagas atzmi. Rabbi Yossi says, Allah nizak l'archagas atzmi. But even Rabbi Yossi responds to Rabbanan by saying, look, even if typically the mazik, beware, but here when it comes to the bees and the thing, why are you placing the onus on the mustard fellow? And the Rabbanan explained their position. All the best to you, and